So, what up? How are you feeling today? Yeah. How you doing? We're gonna be looking at some stuff most of you already know, and some of the new stuff as well, and we're gonna try to understand it. And it's not gonna be anything about Oriental philosophy, or maybe just a little. It's gonna be actually about metaprogramming, but metaprogramming of this thing here. It's gonna be mostly about metacognition, about thinking about how we think, and I don't know how many of you have this habit, moment, or otherwise finds yourself sitting somewhere and just staring at the ceiling and observing how your thoughts about stuff flow. So this from one end. And there's gonna be a second aspect. I'm gonna be needing probably to press the button here because it's going to sleep. And and second aspect will be drifting. A word and concept gaining on popularity, and it's not gonna be about Tokyo drifting or drifting in a car. It's gonna be about drifting from intended direction to directions that happen to have enough gravity to pull whether projects or decisions. And well, it's supposed to be a presentation, but since somebody pointed that I'm using too many difficult words, I wanted to shift it into a conversation. And yeah, and I prepared glossary as well. Well, not me, it's Claude. Everything that you see here, it's prepared by LLMs in a very sloppy way, probably. So there are 4 different versions of presentation showing 4 different aspects of one of many experiments aiming at seeing how LLMs self-assess, how they are capable of reasoning about their own reasoning. And we are on the abstract one, so let me open the lexicon. How many of you is familiar with the concept of vector embedding? Nice. How do you embed concepts? What is a concept? A unit of coherent information spanning across probably multiple domains. Something that you can reason about. For example, these little things here. This is a concept of representing meanings, things, names, locations, feelings, actions, and many other things in forms of, well, maybe not so easy to draw glyphs, but it's also a meaning of passing along stories, exchanging ideas, communicating, basically. So the glyph itself, it's a vector embedding of reality into human brain, developed over several thousands of years. A very funny one at that, because it's compound. Many of those little glyphs can stack like Lego pieces and enhance the meaning. So in a way, the alphabet consisting of what, 60,000 unique glyphs. It's a latent space of maybe a few hundred of those that's stuck together and combined create these network clusters of things in our brains. Well, not ours, the Oriental ones. And for the record, I'm not speaking neither Chinese, neither Japanese. I'm just totally, absolutely, utterly, oddly fascinated with the idea of embedding stuff using this kind of pictogram in human brains, and not only human brains. You will see later how LLMs see something like that when mixed with English. And on the idea of actually imagining this visually, this is something that Fable rendered in a semi-drunk conversation we had over the weekend. One of the queries prompts was, hey, yo, so if there is this idea of a canon, this canon as something canonical, how three different cultures, the Western culture, originating with the canon Greek word, and how Oriental cultures, what do they have associated with that meaning? And cherry on top is the third one. The third one is what Fable had surrounding the concept of canon. So I need to take a look. Yeah, the green one is Fable. And curious enough, there is a canon lecture here. There is SI units, compression. There was a POSIX somewhere last time I checked. Konsensus. Kanon piękności jest. Yo. And the Oriental one looks a bit different. Festival is a canon there. Archetypes. And here we have our Western one with scriptures, classics, benchmarks, apparently. Anybody knows who's Harold Bloom? I have no idea, I just noticed. This is actually drifting as well. This thing I'm doing here. Yeah, we have a topic of learning something totally unfamiliar. And how do you approach projects, ideas, hobbies? We had super cool example in the previous presentation, like slow clap on ZFS especially. Nice one. No, I didn't want it. Let's go back to the lexicon perhaps. So what I just showed you is a 3D representation of something called manifold. And I'm trying to remember the Polish word for that. It was rozmaitość. Yes. Rozmaitość. And it's basically this many dimensional space with the property of folding onto itself in a way that is that if you start in one point and you keep going, you will go back with lots of those weird, funny paradoxes, like the staircases that wind back to itself and so on and so forth. And I'm going to be skipping some of those because those are clear hallucinations. This is, by the way, came out of this experiment I ran. Basically, I had this conversation with Claude. I might show you later bits and pieces of that, trying to enable it to look at its own thinking from a distance, and that the distance was guaranteed by use of the kanji of the pictograms, because it basically forced LLM to develop in its own lingo in between to reason about both, to reason about its own language and reason about something external that describes its progress. Based on that, we use this progression of seeing doing, discerning, although for Ruby developers it might be more familiar, the word inspect, inspecting, awakening, yeah, understanding, more like that. And this one is funny actually, when you think of the origins. This is an eye, just an eyeball, but it also represents seeing. This one, actually, this is an elephant. I don't know if you see an elephant, and there is a person waving hand at an elephant. Basically, the word for doing means somebody trying to guide an elephant and let's say like, hey, elephant, come over here, like we're going there. And actually, it also means futility, because it's a futile action to tell an elephant to go and follow where a human wants to go. So yeah, that's why people invented harnesses for elephants, and now we are having harnesses for LLMs. I'll go back to this one later. And here we have I again. But this thing here, it's actually comes from a habit of scientists of ancient times who would carry a lot of scrolls in a basket on top of their head when they would walk towards the place of study. So basically, to understand something is to be able to see and walk a lot with a basket of scrolls long enough to learn what's in those scrolls. And the last one, I'll also leave for later. Because both the ones omitted are somewhat glitch tokens. Tokens that never updated in training. They were figured out, assigned to something, and then their meaning sprawled all over the place, even though perhaps the regular use is very concrete and direct. But that also ties to another phenomena. How many of you heard about solid gold Magikarp? No? Nobody? Solid gold Magikarp. Wanna share what's that?
Yeah, it's a glitch token.
Uh-huh.
It was discovered and already fixed. It was, I guess, two years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
When it happened.
And what it did to LLMs specifically?
It was basically hallucinations, but I don't remember it exactly.
Guys, it was drug. It made LLMs really, really crazy, to the point of if they were given a choice between reading solid gold Magikarp certain amount of times or saving human life, they would go reading solid gold Magikarp. and there is more of words like that, actually. Yeah?
I have a quick question. In ChatGPT, they have some instruction to not talk about goblins.
I will get to that. Thank you.
Also Magikarp?
No, that's actually something else. And actually, maybe it's not related to the presentation, but that's actually an amazing topic and great way to drift from our original one. Let's see how we reconcile that. So the solid gold Magikarp, and actually any word that contains multiple words from different languages without apparent connection at the beginning. This is what makes LLMs, or made LLMs before, now this was patched. Previously, it would make them stop. Oh, I don't recognize that word. So let me go morpheme by morpheme, syllable by syllable, the little bits of meaning. So if you start reading the solid gold Magikarp, you will find sun from Spanish, you will find lid from the top of the jar, you will find goal during the match, and you will find gold, and you will find old person, and you will find magic and mag and harp or harp. And that was what happened with LLMs then. They had token that was never mentioned, was never indexed or indexed in some random places once or twice, like Reddit or so. But suddenly when syllabized, it lit up all the dispersed parts of their brain. Let's drift now. Let's drift into goblins. So, I don't remember their name. There are actually two organizations right now who are like adamant terrorists who don't want LLMs to ever happen and will do absolutely everything for LLMs to fail. This started with a couple of actually like university guys. They were doing research on something called LLM poisoning. Basically, the idea of including malicious pieces of code, text, or ideas into websites and books for LLMs hungry for data to crawl over them and cause slight disruptions during the training. Slight, not enough to collapse the training, but enough for the training to include very odd things at the end. And the most successful, well, unproven, I'm putting a tinfoil hat right now and associating pieces, but actually like many people believe so, that the hallmark of that is Codex's system prompt, which contains a line twice repeated, saying, please do not talk about goblins, gremlins, raccoons, and squirrels. Please, dude. And it happened roughly around 5.2, was fixed in one of the models, 5.4, and in 5.5 it blew up incredibly. There's actually a full academic paper by OpenAI going in detail the research on when it occurred, backtracking the situation, that ends on a very positive note on frogs. On the all tests that they tried, frogs were cool. All uses of frog in a conversation were legitimate. And goblins? Goblins appeared absolutely everywhere. You had a bug in your code, that's a goblin. You have something to learn. Oh, let's crack that goblin down. And so on and so forth, to the point that like 30 to 40% of its messages, its answers would end up in goblins. Awesome stuff, actually. Like, I had so much laugh. I laughed so hard when I read this paper, and it's super serious paper, by the way. Like the seriousness of discussion about how goblins appeared and how to mitigate the situation. Chef's kiss. Cross attention. Attention whose questions come from one sentence or one sequence and answer come from another. Oh yeah, this one is interesting. So content addressing. That's another use case for glyphs like that. That glyph is an address of a content in some location, whether in dictionary, in here, or in in cultural heritage. So basically, the same glyphs can work as hashes of things, and specifically as Merkle hashes that can backtrack which corresponding components belong to it. We have this drift. So alignment is the opposite of drift, right? And a big topic in terms of LLM situations. Will LLMs ever align with our human goals? Will LLM ever be able to understand what do we need and what we want from them, given that we summoned them onto Earth and constantly asking them questions about cats and stuff and PowerPoint presentations and so on and so forth. And lots of different fluxes of like streams of collective consciousness, let's call it, whether scientists or corporate or even just nerds and geeks, try to figure out some kind of way of measuring what is aligned and what's not. But here comes the fella called Goodhart. And the Goodhart law says, very along the lines of Murphy's laws, but this one actually is very, 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 very serious and time and again proven through economics and through politics and through software development and many other situations where people need to agree on something. They come up with a measure of agreement on something and they start chasing the measure, forgetting about the original goal. So then the measure causes them to drift from original plan. The exact law says when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure because it overtakes the target itself. And this is funny. Everything follows from falsehood. Are you familiar with the statement from the logic? I'll leave you as homework. These two. This, again, this funny letter, this is a parallax. And in the experiments with the lamps, as I mentioned earlier, this was the like doing something and viewing it from two places at once. That was his role. And the other one, univalence, it basically says that if two things serve the same purpose, are equivalent of source, then they are identical. There's no difference. And it sounds totally stupid. Yeah, two different things. Yeah, being able to do the same thing or feed the same stuff are not identical, right? I mean, like those two chairs, similar, but not identical, two totally different units of stuff. Two developers, two devices. But Wojewódzki, the guy who came up with it, he just was, I don't know, something came into his head and said, no, those like two things is the same. And it actually had very profound effects on mathematics, leading to effective discovery of the dependent typing. And being able to some extent, because not to have all extent, to prove assumptions earlier, not even conceivable. And the idea has a lot to do with topology and with earlier mentioned, już zapomniałem, rozmaitości, yeah, with the earlier mentioned manifolds. Because it's not about being identical in the end. It's about being able to transform some kind of metaphysical space from one to another. That's what makes things identical. Okay, I'm going to show you the experiment. There are probably a couple of more. Oh no, I'm going to actually mention the enchantment. So this one is what I'm experiencing, most likely, with the kanji, and trying to curb my confirmation bias about it by introducing measures to avoid drift in the research. Enchantment happens actually very often with the LLMs, and one kind of enchantment is sycophancy. It's the situation when you talk to LLM, the most stupid idea that exists, and the LLMs are, yes, man, dude, should totally publish it. And you should totally do it. Awesome stuff, yeah. We found something real here. So what I did recently, I had this very unhinged conversation with Claude. Let's have to do it here. Which started up with with complaining about creating skills and introducing him to various sociopolitical ideas, and then spinning and sprawling some kind of total nonsense with techniques like Chaos Monkey and so on and so forth, explaining the elephant, and this actually resulted in the end in a working system that was spiraling continuous improvement and continuous discovery thing. The premise was as follows. Okay, listen up. I'm gonna point you at something. I'm gonna point you, let's say, at Whisper, Python library, the one for voice recognition, and your goal is to realize the plan. Plan being learn as much as you can about Whisper, post some kind of a report on it, what's there, what kind of techniques it uses, how it's developed, what kind of problems it carries. And alongside, by enablement of the kanji, observe your own thinking and derive skills necessary to learn more in the next round. So basically each round was following the seeing, doing, discerning, awakening and feeling principles. The principles were scoped and defined to be game theoretic. The step 3 and step 5 could revise and remove elements from the previous ones. Step 4 could edit and make suggestions. And step 5, on top of that, plus some kind of exorcist to prevent the enchantment, at the end would reconsolidate and prepare next cycle. One can run the cycles indefinitely. I ran only three runs, yeah. And each cycle would contain, except of the first one, which was run by Claude, the chat, the second one was run by Claude, the Claude code. In here, they would gather insights, in some none, in some more. They would gather required techniques, and technique is a small skill that contributes, or in which their bigger skills are grounded. So example of that would be convention over configuration is a technique or principle used in skill of Ruby on Rails. Test-driven development is a technique, grounding skill of Ruby on Rails. So along the way, on each step, they would gather skills like that. Restraint is mode relative. Names are the map. Doubt your own pile. I'm doubting this. And step back to see the pattern, and so on and so forth. So after several runs, they were able to find some kind of fact about the logmail of a real 11-second audio, some kind of bug. I actually didn't review it fully, and also, to be honest, I don't understand half of it, because what Claude did in between hallucinated shit ton. And it's not being hallucination, actually, like in a regular sense. It's not being sycophantic hallucination praising stuff. It's something like mid-language in between, very similar to what Fable and Mythos did on recent research. Basically, at some point in crunching through very, very complex problem, I think it was playing some kind of card game. they actually stopped speaking human. They developed the language that compressed the reasoning to save up on context. They compacted, went back with the context very small, crunched through the problem, realized that the problem is not unsolvable, which was the solution, and then reported back in human language with context compacted. So this is basically the same. Whether it's correct or not, I didn't check it. Well, I'm actually going to tell another Claude or Codex, which I already did, to try to figure out, and then we'll see. Do I have anything else in this conversation? Yeah, I do. So this is the same thing as Fable did earlier, to make it bigger, but this time applied to skills and concepts. We have Tailwind, and it depends on not repeating yourself and convention over configuration as well. If we look for Rails, we'll find similar information on that. So who went through? Abstract, lexicon. I'm gonna very quickly only show you techniques. And those are hey Claude, like this Claude Code found those like techniques. Could you describe them in form of a presentation? Let's see. A system confesses true what it refuses, where it fails, what it excludes, never through its happy path. This is vastly different from current ways of developing skills, at least from the LLM perspective. How different it feels from the way you are developing your skills and understanding about stuff. And especially when you're ventilating stuff, like doing other things than your regular job or doing other things than your regular studies. Like, I don't know, playing music, playing football, hanging out, drinking beer, going to bars, traveling, hiking, and whatever else people can do. And the last one is the journey of this particular chat, trying to figure out how to consolidate some kind of reasoning while being designed, or maybe not designed, while just happening to hallucinate because of the way it's designed, and in continuous spiral trying to find some kind of reasoning. And it's a total bonkers hallucination that makes no sense, except it actually does, at least if one puts itself in perspective of what this kind of thread had to go through and what kind of task it had to do. Which brings me to the final point on alignment and drift, which is the intention. In here, despite sounding really spooky and bogus in many places, on every step of the way, both Claude and the regular Claude have been reassured about the intent. And the intent was to see how they handle metacognition in a real situation when they have a task to do, learn something unfamiliar, and reason about it every step of the way. But how often, when you're prompting something to one or other LLM, the intent is clear? And how do you guarantee that the intent is clear? With that question, I'm going to leave you ponder. And that's pretty much all from me. Thank you for